Hey everybody, Luke here, and this week we're talking about heel pain and people who are trying to get back to running. So this is a real common issue for people after they've had heel pain, whether it's plantar fasciitis heel pain on the bottom of the heel, or like an Achilles tendonitis on the back of the heel, or really any other ankle and foot injury in general. They work really hard with physical therapy to get to feeling better, and then they get to that point where they want to ramp up their activity and do things like long walking or hiking, jogging, and running, and they're just really not sure of first of all whether they can, if that's a reasonable expectation, or if they want to, when can they do it, how can they do it safely, and there's a lot of fear there. So I had a patient last week named Sarah. She's 47, and I'm just going to read you off her question here. So she says, I'd really like to start running again, but I've been struggling with this heel pain for so long and I don't want it to come back. My pain's only been completely gone for the last week, so how do I know that running won't just bring the pain right back? Then she also goes on to ask, will I ever return to running, or should I just be happy that my heel pain is gone and focus on some other type of exercises? So if you're like Sarah, if you've experienced heel pain in the past, or again those foot and ankle pains, you can probably completely understand where she's coming from, because these pains can last a long time. They can be really hard to get rid of, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of stretching, a lot of physical therapy, and then when you finally are getting some relief and you want to get back to other activities, you could understand how to be a little bit fearful, just because, again, you don't want to put yourself right back to where you started after all that hard work. So here's some keys. I got 4 simple tips for you today that you can use when you're trying to get back into those activities. So the first tip is to make sure that you warm up and you stretch before you try to run or hike. So going through physical therapy, a lot of times stretching, and it could be your ankle, it could be your knees, hips, IT bands. You could have a lower back issue that was kind of contributing to your ankles. So whatever you've done to get to where you are, you probably have a handful of good stretches. So you want to make sure that you stretch more before you run. If you're not having pain, a lot of people don't necessarily need to stretch before they run, but for you, when you're first getting back into it, you definitely want to do that. Give yourself the time, stretch those muscles out, make them feel good. Again, you could do any variety of stretches. Calves are real common, soleus stretches are real common. Any other specific ones you've got are great. And if you're lucky with your therapy, you may even have gone through like some foam roller type stretches or some self-massage type techniques. So make sure you do those. So that's your first tip. Your second tip is to make sure you're using proper footwear. I think a lot of you who know me personally, I'm a big fan of going barefoot, especially when it's warmer out. Right now it's beginning of March and it's not that warm, but I'm looking forward to the warmer weather soon. But anyways, when you're just walking around the house, you're in your slippers, flip-flops, barefoot, whatever, you're probably okay. But when you're trying to ramp up and do something a little more demanding, you definitely want to make sure that you have some supportive footwear, and that kind of varies from person to person. But if you're a runner, you want some nice supportive running shoes. There's different shoes for hiking, different shoes for basketball, tennis, stuff like that. So you're going to want to make sure that you have that appropriate footwear. If you've gone through the process and gotten into orthotics and stuff, you want to make sure you use those for those activities as well. So that's your second tip. Your third tip is that you want to avoid pain while you're running. And this may sound like a no-brainer, but I think you'd be surprised at how many people we run across who have kind of the no pain, no gain mentality, or conversely, they think, well, I'm in pain right now, but I just have to get through it and then things will loosen up and go from there. That's not really true, and pain is your body's best way of telling you, hey, you're hurting yourself, you're doing something wrong. So a little bit of, tension and tightness, stiffness is okay, but again, if you go back to that first tip, you want to be able to work that out as you're warming up. So that should go away as you're warming up and stretching. And then while you're running, if you get anything like sharp and sudden pains, you definitely want to stop or slow down. One of the two. However you can do that to make sure you're not running or hiking with pain. Again, that's your body telling you that you're not doing something right. And this is especially true when you're first getting back to running those first 2 or 3 times. So keep an eye out for that. And let's see. Yeah, you want to ramp up. So, say you're trying to ramp up to running without pain. A good kind of strategy there is to say, okay, well, you're going to warm up first, again, stretch with that first tip, and then you're going to start at a light speed, maybe a brisk walk for a little while. If there's no pain there, then you ramp it up, let's say, to 50% of your maximal speed, and do that for several minutes. And then if you're okay there, then you go up and you start running closer to full speed. So if you can kind of just gradually shift yourself up there, that's a really safe way to do it. That also goes for other sports as well. It's kind of like the basketball players or the tennis players or football, is that you want to start your activities at like quarter speed, half speed, and just work up from there. And if you're still feeling pain-free while you do that, then you should be pretty safe. So let's get to the fourth tip. The last tip is to be realistic with your distances. And again, this would also be relevant for other sports and stuff, is that if you're hoping to get back to running for like 5 or 10 miles or even more than that, some people are crazy like that, you want to make sure that you don't feel like you're going to start with 5 to 10 miles on your first couple runs. You know, so you might even start with a mile, couple miles, and just test the waters and just be realistic. And again, the specific distances are going to be different from person to person, but be realistic and say, you know, this is my ultimate goal out here of 5, 10 miles, whatever it is. The first few runs I'm going to just do, you know, this much and take it easy. The other thing, actually that's good. So work up from there. So those are your 4 tips. Few more general pieces of advice when you're exercising, running in general, is that you want to pay attention to your hydration, so drinking plenty of water to make sure your tissues are well hydrated, and your nutrition. So nutrition is kind of another subject all in and of itself, but hopefully you're doing like a nutrient-dense diet because those 2 things are really important for your recovery. And the last thing there is you want to be again, more realistic with your rest periods, especially when you're first starting. You know, you may work up to the point where you can run 4 or 5 days a week or do sports or hike or whatever it is you want to do. But early on, again, when you're recovering from some type of an injury like heel pain, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself at least a day or 2 between sessions. That being said as well, it's normal to have a little bit of stiffness and soreness for the next 24 to 48 hours, which is much different than having pain while you're running. But again, afterwards, that next day, a little soreness into the muscles that you've just been kind of recovering from and recuperating, that's normal, but it should go away within 24 to 48 hours. Otherwise, you've probably done too much. But again, early on when you're first getting back, be realistic with those rest periods too, because those muscles are needing to, you know, reacclimate to what you want to do. And this includes all the muscles in your feet, ankles, knees, hips, back, and so on and so forth. So those are all your tips. Kind of a lot of tips, but really if you use them, it's a pretty simple way to get yourself back to running. And I think for most of us, it's very reasonable that you want to get back to those activities that you really enjoy. That's why you come to physical therapy in the first place. You know, first off, you want to feel better, but second off, you want to get back to doing all of those activities. So as always, if you have questions, you can email me directly or call the clinic here. I'll leave that information in the comment section of this video. And happy running, hiking, sports to all of you who are watching. Thanks for watching. Bye.